What's good, y'all? Hope y'all having a blessed day today. Today we're gonna watch the history of bread. We know we all eat it, we all love it. If it's a slice of bread, if it's a whole bread, if it's croissant, if it's white wheat. I'm trying to think of another one. The rolls. What else? What else? Hawaiian. All type of bread. Let's watch and see. Well, I know bread been here since the Bible days, because the Bible talk about bread and unleaded bread and stuff like that. But hope y'all having a blessed day. Let's get to the video. Subscribe, be a part of the church family. Let's get it.
The key to great skin is exfoliating and moisturizing. Old Spice gives me both.
This thing, it's what's going on inside of me. It's my mod.
And the act of making bread has been bringing people together for thousands of years, from Mesopotamia to the TikTok generation. So, today we're getting a rise out of the history of bread.
The history of bread.
But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History Foods channel. After that, please leave a comment and let us know what other foods you would like to hear about. All right, time to stop loafing.
They look good. The prehistory of bread.
We don't know who exactly invented bread. However, there is evidence that humans from Europe to Australia have been grinding grain for at least 32,000 years. So whoever was first, they likely drove the same model car as Fred Flintstone. We also don't know exactly when humanity jumped from grinding grain to making bread, but we were certainly doing it by the Epipaleolithic era, roughly 14,000 years ago. The earliest known bread makers were a Levantine society known as the Natufians. They made a pita-like flatbread from wild plant roots, wild wheat, and wild barley. The Natufians were a little ahead of their time, but by about 10,000 years ago, bread was being made by mixing crushed grain with water, then laying the dough on heated rocks, and covering it with hot ash. This was right about the same time people were beginning to first domesticate modern wheat in the Fertile Crescent. While it was long believed the development of agriculture led to the creation of bread, it actually now seems more likely that the creation of bread led to the development of agriculture. Okay, we get it. Bread is a big deal. It does not need to be so smug about it. The domestication of wheat spread from Mesopotamia throughout the world, and with it, civilization. There's evidence of bread consumption in places like Turkey and Europe as early as 9000 BCE. By 8000 BCE, the Egyptians had developed an unleavened bread similar to a modern Mexican tortilla, lending credence to the theory that the pyramids of Giza may have had Taco Bells inside them. Later, Egyptian bread became lighter and fluffier after they realized that letting wheat dough ferment would produce gases that turned a flatbread into a loaf. The Egyptians liked bread so much that, along with beer, they essentially used it as currency until they switched to coins in the first millennium BCE. They were also among the first to develop baking ovens. Speaking of which, the people of the Indus Valley, located in modern-day India and Pakistan, were making bread in vertical clay ovens, sometimes called tanur, tandoor, or tandir, as early as 5,000 years ago. Still in use today, these vertical ovens are akin to fireplaces, with heated walls and a hole that functions as a chimney and can reach temperatures of 900 degrees Fahrenheit. The Greeks were also innovators in the area of bread ovens, and as far as anyone could tell, they were the first culture to hit on the now ubiquitous configuration of a freestanding oven that could be preheated and has an access door. Just think if they had patented that.
That bread is so good.
Although various forms of leavening have been used in bread going back 9,000 years, the semi-permanent pairing of bread with domesticated yeast is generally agreed to not have happened until around 1000 BCE. But no one really knows who did it first. Some think it happened in Mesopotamia. Some think it was the Romans or the Egyptians. And there's always the possibility of parallel thought, meaning they all came up with it on their own at around the same time. Whatever the case, in classical times, leavening was most commonly accomplished by using a leftover piece of dough from the last batch, which would have contained sugar and water, as a starter for sourdough. And thanks to regular Weird History contributor Pliny the Elder, we know that the Gauls and the Iberians produced a lighter kind of bread than other people's by infusing the dough with foam skimmed off beer. Bread and beer have long been noted to contain the same ingredients: grain, yeast, and water, albeit in different proportions. Some have even theorized that Egyptians may have made beer by first making yeasted bread and then fermenting it in water. After all, at the end of the day, beer is really just a liquid bread that gets you drunk.
Commercial. Ding, ding. They playing the same commercial shit. So annoying.
Imagine pulling up to the food court, getting a plate full of food, and then sitting down to quietly eat both the meal and the tray it came on. Well, in Europe, wooden dinnerware didn't actually come along until around the 15th century. So back in the Middle Ages, part of the table service would typically include something called a trencher. A trencher was, well, a big stale piece of bread. And by big, we mean roughly 6 inches by 4. The trencher served as an absorbent plate or bowl to serve and eat off of. And when times were tough, or you just generally didn't feel like doing dishes, you could finish off your meal by eating your trencher, or tossing it to the family dog. Either way, no muss, no fuss. During the Middle Ages, white bread made from wheat was considered the good stuff. But just like today, most people weren't rich, so ye average Joe probably ate a darker bread made from oats or rye. This was sometimes spiced up a bit with the addition of things like chestnuts, lentils, acorns, rice, or peas. Acorns. Maslin, a loaf of bread made from blended rye and wheat flour, was also common. Acorns optional. The Industrial Revolution is generally considered to have occurred between 1760 and 1840, but it would take until the early 20th century for it to really kick the bread business into high gear. In 1912, for example, an American inventor named Otto Frederick Rohvetter came up with a prototype for a machine that would slice bread. Speaking of which, ever hear someone call something the greatest thing since sliced bread, and wonder how that got to be the standard against which all human inventions are now judged? Turns out, in 1928, using the invention it took Rohvetter 16 years to finish, the Chillicothe Baking Company became the first manufacturer to ever sell sliced bread. And they did it using a slogan that framed the innovation as the greatest forward step in the baking industry since bread was wrapped. Subsequent advertisements by the competitors then tried to up the ante by describing their own products as the greatest thing since sliced bread. The phrase caught on and was popularized by comedian Red Skelton in 1952, when he defended the emerging medium of television as the greatest thing since sliced bread. Maybe, but you can't eat your TV. Well, not yet. Sliced bread as a product really blew up in 1930, when a pre-sliced version of Wonder Bread was released by the Continental Baking Company, the same people who brought you Twinkies. Interestingly, pre-sliced Wonder Bread and Twinkies were both released in 1930. Coincidence? We think not. Twinkie the Kid is hiding something. Continental promoted the heck out of Wonder Bread, and people loved it, quickly making it, and sliced bread in general, a staple in supermarkets across America. Everything was going great, until sliced bread found itself up against its greatest foe, and everyone else's for that matter, Adolf Hitler. In 1942, at the outset of the U.S.'s involvement in World War II, rationing important products and materials, like gasoline, rubber, and sugar, became a priority back on the home front. Then in 1943, the selling of sliced bread was declared illegal by Claude R. Wickard, the Secretary of Agriculture and head of the War Foods Administration. How did banning sliced bread help the war effort? Wickard figured it would help conserve wax paper, which was used to wrap sliced bread to keep it fresh. He also had his eye on the metal that would be used to build new slicers, and arguably even the sugar in the bread itself. The de facto ban did not go over well. According to Time magazine in February of that year, to U.S. housewives, it was almost as bad as gas rationing, and a whale of a lot more trouble. One agitated woman even wrote the New York Times to explain how important sliced bread was to the morale and saneness of a household. And anyone can understand their lament. Can you imagine having to cut this damn thing yourself? To placate the mobs, New York Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia declared that bakeries which already had slicers could go right on selling sliced bread. Of course, all the bakers who didn't have slicers were now being told it was illegal to buy them, effectively putting them out of business. The government quickly realized their ban was the worst thing since unsliced bread, and pulled the plug on it after just over a month.
If you're one of the many
That's
people
crazy.
struggling financially right
If you
now,
didn't have a
Bridget's got your
slicer,
back. They'll send you $50 to
you ran out of
$250 instantly
Couldn't sell
with
nothing.
no credit check or interest.
Download the
crazy.
Bridget app today and get $50 to $250 instantly.
That is wild, bro.
This video was sponsored by the University of Phoenix. Completing a degree is possible, even for people with a busy lifestyle.
Commercials.
Let University of Phoenix help you to get
All right. There you go.
Based on the decades stretching from 2010 to 2020, the most popular types of bread in the United States are whole wheat, white, Italian, French, and sourdough. And we all know about bagels, baguettes, brioche, ciabattas, pita, pumpernickel rye, and all the other kinds that you'll likely find at the local supermarket. But just because something is popular doesn't mean it's actually the best. And there's a near infinite number of different types of bread in the world. For example, did you know that in Afghanistan they have a delicious flatbread called bolani, flavored with scallions and fresh herbs? Its dough is baked with layers of filling made from things like potatoes, spinach, or lentils. And El Salvadorian pupusas in grilled cornbread, usually wrapped around a filling of pork, beans, or cheese. It's flatbread, just like Norwegian lefse, but lefse is potato bread usually served with butter, cinnamon, and sugar. And it was a favorite of the Vikings, especially Fran Tarkenton. Meanwhile, Navajo fry bread is a symbol of perseverance to their nation. It's made from white flour, lard, and sugar, which were the same government-provided resources the Navajo had to rely on to survive after being forced out of Arizona and resettled. And Australian damper bread can be made from just water, flour, and salt, although more modern recipes often include things like butter, milk, and some extra form of leavening. It can be cooked directly in a cast iron pan or even on a stick. As you probably remember, way back in March of 2020, the United States went into lockdown due to that whole pandemic thing. With nowhere to go and nothing to do, many Americans turned to taking up hobbies, and one of the most popular was bread making. Why bread making? Well, some people claimed that it gave them a sense of control during a crisis. Others found it to be fulfilling and relaxing during a tense and uncertain time. And still others just needed something to do. Whatever the reason, bread making became such a popular hobby, flour mills couldn't keep up with the demand. And then yeast became more scarce than tickets to the Eras Tour. As a result, everyone started making sourdough, and it must have made an impression, because based on recent TikTok trends, bread making is on the rise all over again. Maybe people are nostalgic for lockdown, or maybe it's just a pleasant hobby. Or maybe, as history teaches us, making bread is just a fundamental part of being human. Hey, anyone else thinking about buying stock in Wonder Bread? So what do you think? What's your bread of choice? And have you ever tried?
Man, that's cool. Like I said earlier, I know bread been here since the beginning of the Bible days, but just seeing the different time frames and different generations of bread, how it grew, that's amazing. I didn't know bread was bread maker was popular back in 2020. I didn't know that. I did see I seen a video on how to make bread. Look interesting. So hope I enjoyed the video. I love history video. Y'all already know that. Y'all make sure to subscribe. And I'm gonna say it again. You have a week from today to enter into the cash giveaway. How you do it? Two things. One, be subscribed to this channel, be a part of the church family. Two, go to the history of Barnes and Nobles. Go to that video. Go look for that video on this channel. Go to that video, watch it, of course, and then comment your Cash App. Go to the comment section and put in your Cash App. Them the only ways you are entering into the cash giveaway for this channel. Because next Wednesday I will be revealing on here and on my IG who won the money, so I can show y'all this ain't no joke. So subscribe to the channel, go to the video and watch the history of Barnes and Nobles in the comment section. Put in your Cash App and you enter into the giveaway. And hey, you may win, You may not, but take a chance to win. And y'all check out my YouTube shorts, cause it's a lot of great stuff on my YouTube shorts. Just when you go to my channel, go to shorts and just check them out. So y'all have a blessed day. No, God, well, first, I love you. Well, first, I love you and God love you. Peace.